cool plant today that I think a lot of people are probably overlooking. This is Persicaria maculosa, lady's thumb, and a few other edible smartweeds that we'll go over. So there's lots of different smartweeds. Every single one is edible. There's no poisonous ones. You can see lady's thumb is a little blotch on the leaf. The native dockleaf smartweed is on the right. That's the largest one. All of them are edible. There's a slew of these plants, and these are in the knotweed family. This is Japanese knotweed. You can see that kind of bamboo-looking stem there. You will see later when I show you some of the younger plants. This is what the plant looks like when it's growing upright in my backyard. You can see that little blotch on the leaf is a little bit faded as the plant goes to flower, and that is going to be pretty common. And the flowers can be pink or white. This is another little smartweed. I don't even know what it is. That one really doesn't look like food, but if it was not flowering, then maybe I would eat it. One way that you can tell lady's thumb specifically from some of the other ones, like Persicaria pennsylvanica, is that it has these little bristles on the ochrea, which is a little sheath that covers the stems where they branch out. Some other cool Persicarias. Rau Ram, this is Vietnamese coriander. You can buy this at an Asian market, and it tastes like cilantro that's also spicy. Super cool. If you don't like cilantro, it'll terrify you. Waterpepper is another really cool one. This is an invasive plant, and this is actually the plant that smartweeds are named for. It's hot like wasabi, every part of the plant. And it's called smartweed because if you touch your eyes or something after you touch the plant, it's going to get spicy just like a pepper. All right, here I'm going to harvest some of the lady's thumb from my boulevard. I'm going to slow this down a little bit just so you can see what I'm doing here, and I'm just cutting the tender tips of the plant. You have less wiggle room here with this plant than you do with something like lamb's quarters or nettles, because they're going to get pretty stiff after once you get down like over an inch. This is the max that you want to harvest at this stage with this plant. And that's just because the stems are going to be more tough than most of the other wild greens that I've cooked with. Now I'll just do a little close-up here, and you can see once again the plants are a little bit older in the summer, so those blotches on the leaf are a little bit harder to see. They're kind of faded, and all we're going to do is just pick this top tender portion, that tender young growth. And you can get more yield when the plants are younger. You can pick those little kind of side clusters too, but that is really all you're doing. So not a ton of yield. One of my favorite ways to cook these, if you're going to try them and you just want to try them by themselves, I typically blanch these any way that I'm going to cook them. It just helps make them tender. So we'll blanch them for, say, a minute or two. I've seen other references that say you have to boil them for like 5 minutes. That's just going to give you mush. And this is the Gomae salad. I do this with all kinds of different greens. And these plants are really mild, so we're going to take some nuts. You could use sesame seeds. These are black walnuts I'm using. A little bit of maple syrup instead of the traditional sugar, a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of oil, a little bit of vinegar if you want. Mix that up. It's going to be a really salty, sweet paste. You can make it spicy, and just toss the greens with that after they're cooked and tender, and you can serve this ice cold in the summer. Such a nice little dish. I make this with so many different plants, but I like to make it with one plant at a time. Just kind of arrange them there a little bit, make them look good, and that is a fantastic way to try them for the first time if you don't want to just have them with salt and pepper. Also, cooking them in a blend. Typically I cook these in a blend because, as you will see during the taste test here, they're kind of bland. All right, the most important part. Let's try some lady's thumb. These are just the tender tips of the plant, like I demonstrated in the video, and all I've done here is cook them in boiling, lightly salted water for about 60 seconds. And I just take one out and see if it's tender. You get this cool little vegetable, the little tender tips. I just love that. You can't buy this in a store. Or maybe you can if you go to an Asian market. Little ramp salt. Really good with the ramp salt. The greens are okay, and they're just okay. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that these are the most incredible tasting greens that you're ever going to try, because they're not. But they're cool, and they're mild, And mild plants, mild tasting wild edibles are great to know because they're easy to serve to people and have them, get a pleasant experience from that, especially if they're new to wild food. And I think that's especially important with plants like this that are, super widespread. Anyone can identify this. There's no poisonous lookalikes. Every single smartweed is edible. And that's really cool. You don't get that a lot. But they're not lamb's quarters. They're not nettles. They're never going to be as good as them, but they're okay. It tastes like, I'll try another one here. They're slightly slippery, but not mucilaginous like Doc can be. And they have a taste like a really subtle like green bean taste. And I think the best comparison for the flavor that I can come up with is if you took very small dock leaves and made them 80% less slimy after they're cooked, and then you removed any of the tart flavor. So they're kind of like little dock leaves that aren't tart. They also hold color better after they're blanched compared to most of the dock that I've had. But they're a cool plant. They're fine. How you use these is mixed with other greens. These are like cannon fodder, right? It's great to have mild tasting plants to cook in a blend that you can just sit and eat a pile of them. They're not really strong tasting, and that's great. Use them in a blend, put them in soup, make the little Gomae salad where they're seasoned with, strong tasting condiments like I demonstrated in the video. But there's a great plant to know, and they're cool.